Let's begin. This is the third panel of the day on total factor productivity, patents, and trends in education. I'm the moderator. I'm Steve Figlewski from the NYU Stern School, just down the block. My area is finance and specifically futures and options, which has, as I can tell, virtually nothing to do with the subject of this session, so that makes me a good moderator. Let me introduce our panelists. Right to my left is Professor Nadiri from the economics department here at Stern. He's the J. Gould Professor of Economics. And I've been looking at the bios of these people, and I know if I told you everything, all of their achievements, none of them would have a chance to talk at all. Professor Nadiri, he came here in 1970 and was immediately made chairman of the department and became a full professor a couple of years. I'm sorry? You mean they can't hear me? I can't believe this. Really? Okay. And he became full professor in 1975. He's been a long-term member of the National Bureau of Economic Research. He's a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. Main research topics are productivity analysis, economics of research and development and technical change, telecommunications economics, investment modeling, and growth. And one of the things that he's been most active with recently is trying to help the government of Afghanistan, your home country, get kind of up on its feet and functioning. He was a participant in the Bonn talks and Tokyo talks that both were instrumental in helping out the government. He's been a senior economic advisor to President Hamid Karzai, and has been chairman of the Afghanistan National Development Strategy and co-chair of Joint Coordinating and Monitoring Board. And so we certainly wish you luck on those efforts. Next is Tony Tong, who is listed as being a professor, associate professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at the University of Colorado. He informs me he has just in the last couple of months moved to Purdue. His research interests revolve around corporate strategy and impact on performance. Recent research focuses on the intersection between strategy and innovation, and he's looked at mergers and acquisitions, multinational enterprises, and more. It's published in lots of leading academic journals in strategy, and has won various best paper awards, which are not easy to win, frankly, and are a real testimony to superior research. You can read about the details in the program. And at the far end is Prashant Loyalka. He's a Center Research Fellow at the Freeman Spogli, I just learned that pronunciation a second ago, Institute for International Studies at Stanford. His research focuses on examining and addressing inequalities in the education of youth and on understanding and improving the quality of education in developing economies like China, Russia, and India. He's also spent time in Beijing as an assistant professor at Peking University, and spent 5 years at the China Institute for Educational Finance Research, a think tank advising the government there. So I think we're out of time, so let me then just turn it over to Professor Nadiri. I've been told that you guys get 10 minutes each.
Okay. Can you hear me? I want to talk about the TFP growth and as far as in a general way. First, I want to mention something about the uniqueness of the Chinese experience. This is a country that in a very short period of time of 30, 35 years has managed an extraordinary development. Absolutely extraordinary in any aspect of it. But it keeps its characteristics as a developing country as well as being highly interconnected to the world. So it has adjustments both internal as well as external. This interplay is very important to remember. For example, what Mr. Trump is going to do, it will have a lot of effect on the activities of China and vice versa, whatever happens. The other thing which I wanted to mention is that we are facing, at least according to some literature, a world long-term stagnation. And the role of China will have to be considered if this proposition is correct, because the export markets and many other things will be limited and so forth if this idea of stagnation in the West takes hold. And the other point which I want to make is that as far as the Chinese development is concerned, I'm a little bit more optimistic than being worried about the rate declining from 7.3 to 6.8 and the like of it, though concerns are well positioned, but the long-term aspects of China, I think, is a little bit brighter than one can get this general feelings. It all depends on this huge discussion that we have about the possible processes of transformation to move away from export markets much more to the domestic markets and the like. So the point which I want to make is that China should be looked in the unique version. This is a hybrid of a very, very aggressive development economy and at the same time an international component. And the analysis should reflect that all the time. And second point which I make, that the Chinese have been extremely successful not only to get 600 million people to their own middle class, but they have been able to advance a great deal by allowing, without paying for it, technology transfers from the West. By opening their markets, they have been able to get a great deal of technological development. That doesn't mean just sort of simply the new gadget, but it's just the organizational capabilities and the like which has come. And they have done an extremely good job of it. As far as the economic development of the country is concerned, yes, it has been highly concentrated in terms of capital investment. The issue of technological efficiency that the TFP measures, usually it doesn't come so fast at the beginning of the process of development. This is it comes up later. The problem with the Chinese data and studies that I've seen is that the results are almost all over the space. And one major problem with all these statistics is that the statistics that the GDP and many other measures are based are very precarious. I've seen results that shows that the growth rate of productivity has moved from, say, 1% per annum to almost minus 1% because of the corrections that has been made by some researchers. So one does not know. Secondly, the measures of the deflators, which has to be used properly, does not reflect the quality changes that has occurred in the products as well as the benefits that it has accrued. So the statistics that we have has to be worked on to make it more precise and then draw conclusions. The TFP measurement is fairly simple. You use a production function, it's capital, labor, and then technology, and technology is the disembodied technical change, and that's a measure that how much you are progressing from other factors than other capital and labor. But in China, I would suspect that a great deal of this, and there is some evidence, a great deal of technical change is embodied. This is and fairly large number of increases are happening in the human capital part of the analysis. And that should be accounted for. And one statistic that I saw is that the rate of growth of the GDP growth in 1978 to 2008 is about 45% capital, 8.5% labor, and TFP would have been 47%. But if you adjust for the basically human capital development and so forth, that contribution of TFP declines to almost 30%. That's a fairly sizable change that occurs, and this is the second thing which it shows is that the rate of technological change, or TFP, has been declining, particularly since 1999 to 2008 and thereafter. So the issue which I want to emphasize is that people who are working on Chinese economic development should try to see that if the statistics is quite reliable, because you get different results. On the micro level, many people have done studies on the plant level as well as the industry level. It does show that that China is way behind in terms of technical change compared to the United States and others. And in fact, one study comes up that if the efficiency rates were similar to the U.S., the productivity growth in China will grow between 40 to 50%. So there must be a great deal of misallocation and a great deal of variation in what happens in the enterprises. So people who are working with the micro data, they have to look at the sources of this change and how that will take place. So the other point which I want to make is that China is experiencing, like many other advanced countries, in what is called intangible capital. This is different than the machinery and this and that sort of things. Basically, this is software, this and many of these modern things. And China is doing, to my surprise, extremely well. It has almost doubled the rate of adoption of this kind of capital in this large economy. So this is the trend that's occurring in most of the advanced countries. In fact, China is in the middle. It's better than most other countries except United States, United Kingdom, and Japan. So if that is the case, then there is a source of productivity that will be quite different. The other one is that the structural changes that will affect the GDP as growth as well as the TFP is that China has a huge potential in improving its human capital. And that may allay some of the problems that we heard earlier about the composition of labor changing and having that effect. That, as Mr. Katz has mentioned, is truly a big problem for China, and it's the discussion which we had today on various types of employment in China must be really considered. So, in a way, the declining number of participants basically in the labor market, aside from this distributional issue between the old and the new and the young, is that it affects the return on capital. it will be, you hit a diminishing return, and then also the burden of the supporting the elders will increase, which is also a big issue, and it diverts savings and investments to the proper productive aspect, so that all of that has some consequence for TFP and adoption. And the other thing which I want to mention is that the Chinese have some really a great deal of imaginative ideas for the future, which may not occur, but nonetheless, it's an important thing. For example, this idea of one belt and road and belt, which is a huge infrastructure which really spans the activity of Chinese to the most of the Central Asia and going to Europe, should not be taken lightly. If that is their aspirations, this is an extraordinary political and military as well as economic boon to China. While if you build many countries in Asia, their roads and infrastructures, they will vote with you in the United Nations as well as be friendly to you. So they have an ambition of a kind that may take a long time, maybe half a century or something, but nonetheless they have a view of the economic development of their own, and the advantage of it is that they will use their excess capacity in construction industry very well throughout these countries as well as in. And finally, the other input of the production, which is materials, is they have cleverly done quite a good investment. For example, their investment in Africa, Latin America, are geared to this, getting some supply for their activities and so forth. So I would say that the Chinese case, in the short run, may be some problem of transition that we have the like of it, if the capacity of the government is such to organize and see this thing with some degree of success. The prospect for China is impressive. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.